Well, the main story of the week, Urijah Faber noted last week that he was getting the itch to fight again and said that maybe he'll have a fight imminently. He does. It's in Sacramento, July 13th against Ricky Simone. Now, boy, there's a lot to this one, Joe. Urijah Faber back for the first time since 2016. He's taking on a guy that I think is the right opponent for him to kind of step in there with. It's not a top name, but it is a guy who's won 3 in a row in the UFC. He's 15-1. And I mean, honestly, he probably should be 2-1 after the Merab Dvalishvili fiasco. But it's a guy who could really benefit from a win over Urijah Faber, even away for so long. However, what I don't want to do, and Kaposa brought this up on Twitter, I don't want us to do the thing where it's like, oh, guy who had clearly lost the step is back 3 years later, and we're going to act like he's reinvigorated. No, he's 40 years old. He turned 40 a couple weeks ago. And did he win his last fight? Yes, he did. Was he supposed to? Yes, he was. He hadn't won 3 in a row in quite a while before that. What are you looking for out of a Urijah Faber return?
The natural inclination is to go all vintage, right? Just is he going to be that aggressive fighter, the guy that's got all crazy kinds of heart? When he fought Mike Thomas Brown, broke both his hands in a title fight and had to rely solely on his kicks and elbows. A guy that's a UFC Hall of Famer, right? But the reality is he hasn't competed in 2 or 3 years. He's not, he's got to make 135. Like, dude, you're 40, you got to make 135. I mean, the questions that I've had since the news broke is the many whys. Why are you doing this? Who made the call? Do you need money? Are you fighting for money? Are you fighting for joy? Are you fighting for pleasure? Are you helping the UFC? Did the UFC come to you and say, we really need a name in Sacramento to continue to sell out this card and just continue to somehow, some way build our brand? I mean, there's so many whys behind this, but and Ricky Simone, who wasn't even in the top 15, by the way. I mean, Thomas Almeida's at number 15, but he hasn't fought since January 2016 or 2018, and he lost. What a weird set of rankings this is. But the Urijah Faber that I'd like to see I'd like to see the vintage Urijah Faber. I mean, it's the same thing I think about PJ Penn, right? But it's he's going to be in Sacramento, fighting at home, sleeping in his own bed for his training camp. We'll see, what kind of, and he's got great heart, and he'd be able to tap into that warrior spirit no matter what. So could get real interesting.
I mean, why not? He's going to make 6 figures for this fight. The UFC and ESPN were probably like, man, look at my hair. This is a nest. I keep trying to brush it back. But ESPN's probably happy about it. The UFC's probably happy about it. Urijah Faber's going to make 6 figures from it. It's going to make whatever card is there more interesting. So I'm down for it in that regard. I think it's a smart idea. Do I think it lasts a long time? Probably not. Maybe it's like a 2019 thing, maybe over the next year. But I don't have that much of a problem with it. And Joseph Bosa says we technically don't have a main event yet for Sacramento. I think we're going to see that a lot more, where we get late main events. The UFC has a little more flexibility in that regard, Joe. I'm sure they have pressure from the likes of ESPN, but they also don't have to rely as much on ticket sales as they once did. And they know that Urijah Faber is going to get asses in the seats in Sacramento. That's a tried and true method for them, and especially a return fight. I like the idea of it. The UFC is like, you know what? If everybody else is getting into the yank them out of retirement game, we will too. Urijah Faber was very smart about this, Joe. He never left the USADA testing pool. He said, you know what? If I can handle the inconvenience 3 times a year, it's going to pay off. And he never left the USADA pool. He has been tested ever since 2016 in his retirement. He has been in the pool. I would check it every once in a while, and I'm like, okay, he's still there. And I think he had mentioned that at one point. But he's been tested this year and last year and the year before. Very wise, because then he doesn't have to sit out that 6-month period, Joe. Yep. Savvy on the behalf of Urijah Faber. Didn't cost him a dime. So, hey.
That says a lot, though, Sean. That says that this guy has probably been contemplating returning at any one point in time, because that's something that's required, is the random USADA testing. So that's a very good point on your end there.
He was very, very wise. Very wise. in that regard.